The launch of the first Volkswagen Transporter in November 1949 marked the beginning of the minivan's history, one of the most successful types of motor vehicles, serving as an intermediate link between the passenger car and the bus. The small van minivan became a family car, a service taxi, a tourist vehicle, or a compact delivery truck. In the 1950s and 1960s, minivans turned into a true cult phenomenon and were included in the production programs of many leading car manufacturers around the world. Minivans were produced not only by Eastern car companies, but also by automotive enterprises of the socialist bloc countries, which during the Cold War tried not to fall behind the capitalist world not only in the arms race, but also in the civilian sphere, particularly in the automotive industry. In today's video, we've prepared a story for you about the top 5 minivans from the countries of the socialist bloc. In the absence of a market economy and private ownership, most of these vehicles were in service with various state institutions. They worked in state trade, taxi services, the postal service, healthcare, were used as official transport for various organizations and institutions, and even served in the military. And we begin our list of the best minivans of socialism with the 5th spot, where we place the famous East German minibus Barkas B1000, which became the East German automotive industry's answer to the renowned Volkswagen Transporter minivans that had been produced since 1949 in the West German city of Wolfsburg. Production of the Barkas B1000 was established in 1961 at the facilities of the Framo Company factory, which had been nationalized by the GDR government. The Barkas B1000 was produced in several body styles: minivan, van, cargo passenger version, and a modification with a flatbed platform. Third-party companies converted the Barkas into ambulances and fire trucks. The Barkas B1000 featured a cab-over-van layout with a load-bearing all-metal body, independent torsion bar suspension, and front-wheel drive. In the van body, the Barkas B1000 had a payload capacity of 1 ton and was notable for its urban cargo compartment with a flat and low floor. Its volume was 6.4 cubic meters. Along with the cargo van, production of the Barkas also began in an 11-seat minibus version. In 1962, at the prestigious International Fair in Leipzig, the innovative minivan truly impressed visitors with its incredibly distinctive design, prominently featuring smooth, flowing body lines, a gracefully rounded front end complete with a large, prominent oval radiator grille, a single, elegantly curved windshield, and expansive, clear side windows. Thanks to the independent torsion suspension on both the front and rear axles, the minivan achieved a smooth ride and a low ground clearance, which provided good stability at speed. In terms of design, layout, and engineering solutions, the Barkas B1000 was one of the best minivans of its time. But the main drawback, which prevented this minivan from gaining widespread presence in the automotive market, was hidden in its engine compartment, which was located between the driver's and passenger seats. And this was a 2-stroke, 3-cylinder gasoline engine with water cooling, which the minivan inherited from the Wartburg 311 passenger car. However, before installing it in the Barkas, the engine's displacement was increased to 1 liter, and its power was boosted to 42 horsepower. Starting from 1972, after the release of the Wartburg 353 model, the Barkas 2-stroke engine, the AWE 353 model, produced 45 horsepower, and over time its power increased to 57 horsepower. The engine was paired with a 4-speed manual transmission, also borrowed from the Wartburg passenger car model. The 2-stroke engine was the Achilles heel of this promising minivan. It hummed, smoked, and required considerable effort to maintain. It was necessary to constantly prepare fuel mixtures from gasoline and oil. In the 1960s, the world's leading car manufacturers abandoned 2-stroke engines, leaving them only for motorcycles or garden equipment. At the beginning of the 1970s, the Barkas work plant was preparing to launch an updated minivan called the Barkas B1100 into production. In the prototype versions of this model, 3 options for 4-stroke engines from different countries were considered. The first was an experimental power unit that was being developed for the Wartburg passenger car. The second possible option was a licensed Renault engine, which was assembled at the Romanian Dacia plant. And the third option was tested back in 1969, when a prototype was built with a Soviet Moskvich 412 engine. However, later on, the USSR refused to supply this power unit to Germany due to shortages in its own automotive industry. Experiments with prototypes of the new generation minivan lasted for several years, but were then put on hold due to a lack of funding. Government officials in the automotive industry did not consider this type of vehicle a priority. So until almost the mid-80s, the Barkas was produced without significant updates. It seemed as if the talented East German automotive engineers were deliberately held back, keeping the entire automotive sector, especially the production of passenger vehicles, at a low technological level. If you look at the lineup of passenger cars from all East German state-owned automotive companies, you won't see anything except small plastic compact cars, Trabant and Wartburg models, that rattled and smoked with their two-stroke engines right up until the period of German reunification. The bluish, acrid exhaust of two-stroke cars was a typical sight in East German cities. As for the Barkas B1000, after the failed launch of the new B1100 generation, the minivan continued to be produced without any drastic or significant changes. Some improvements were made gradually. The cooling system, steering, and clutch mechanism were modernized. Over time, the braking system became dual-circuit, and the gearbox became fully synchronized. Barkas also received seatbelts in the cabin and an electric windshield washer instead of the mechanical, foot-operated one. The passenger and cargo passenger versions of the minivan were equipped by the engineers with an independent gasoline heater with a separate 5-liter fuel tank. At the end of 1987, the minivan received sliding side doors instead of hinged ones. But the main technical change in the Barkas happened in 1989, when it finally received a new 4-stroke licensed Volkswagen engine. But by then, it was already too late. On November 9th, the Berlin Wall fell, and the following year, on October 3rd, 1990, the two Germanys officially reunited. In the new conditions of a market economy, the technically and morally outdated minivans stood no chance of competing with West German cars. In 1991, Barkas production came to an end. The Barkas Werke company went bankrupt, and the old factory equipment was scrapped for metal. In total, over 30 years, 175,740 Barkas B1000 vehicles were produced, along with another 1,961 updated B1001S minibuses equipped with a 4-stroke Volkswagen engine. Overall, the Barkas B1000 minivan was an extremely promising model, but due to the limited manufacturing capabilities of the East German automotive industry during the GDR era, it was never able to fully realize its potential. It's quite possible that if there had been a hippie movement in Eastern Europe, the Barkas B1000 minivan would have become their symbol of freedom. And now we move on to the 4th spot in our ranking, where we find a representative of the Polish automotive industry, the Zuk minivan. And the story of these Polish vehicles began in 1956 at the truck factory in the city of Lublin, when the socialist government of the Polish People's Republic decided to set up the production of small trucks based on the Warsaw passenger car. And already in 1958, at the International Trade Fair in the city of Poznan, the first prototype of the Zuk A03 pickup truck would be demonstrated. The name Zuk would be invented by Polish designer Julian Kaminski because of the striped paintwork of the first vehicles, which resembled Colorado potato beetles. Mass production of these vehicles began on July 24, 1959. In the first year, 1,048 Zuks were produced. With each passing year, their numbers increased, and by 1965, production reached 8,621 vehicles. The vehicle had a payload capacity of 900 kilograms and was equipped with a 50 horsepower engine and a 3-speed gearbox. From the mid-60s, this small truck began to be fitted with the 70 horsepower S21 engine. The vehicle's fuel consumption was 13 liters per 100 kilometers. The maximum speed was 95 kilometers per hour. The vehicle's front axle has an independent spring suspension. The rear axle is equipped with longitudinal leaf springs and lever type, rather than telescopic shock absorbers. The vehicle's steering mechanism does not have power steering, so handling the minivan is quite difficult. The braking system is of the drum type with hydraulic drive. Early models of the Zuk had rounded shapes, while later ones received straighter body lines. In 1965, the development of the Zuk A05 van and the new Zuk A13 pickup was completed. The number of pickups produced was small due to a shortage of S21 engines, which were used to equip the vehicles. These pickups were mainly exported, with only a small number making it to the domestic Polish market. In 1967, the Lublin plant expanded the Zuk lineup with new trucks featuring wooden flatbeds. The Zuk A09 with an M20 engine and the Zuk A11, which was equipped with the S21 engine. The most extravagant version was the Zuk A15 fire truck, which was produced based on the van model. A year later, another modification was released, the Zuk A11B, featuring a new braking system that included a vacuum booster and 2 separate circuits for the front and rear wheels. The gear shift lever was moved from the steering column to the floor. More comfortable seats were installed. In 1976, production began on flatbed trucks with a 5-seat double-row cab, the Zuk A16B. All these vehicles were produced in small batches and were mainly intended for export. In 1975, the production of vehicles with M20 engines was discontinued. That same year, the highest number of vehicles was produced, 31,000. The Zuk would be exported not only to countries of the socialist bloc, but also to Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Greece, as well as to Africa and Latin America. However, the largest importer of Lublin Zuks would be the Soviet Union, which, starting from the early 70s, would receive 7,500 vehicles annually. It is also worth noting that Zuks were produced not only in Lublin, but also in Egypt, where, assembled from ready-made kits supplied from Poland, they would be given the name Ramses. The organization of production in Cairo would be handled by the company Eltramco. Since the early 80s, after the onset of the economic and political crisis in Poland, the production of Zuks has been decreasing year by year. Exports are also decreasing not only to the developed countries of the West, but also to the countries of the socialist bloc and the USSR. In an attempt to somehow update the by then outdated Zuk, there would be efforts to install a new 4C90 diesel engine with a displacement of 2.4 liters and a power output of 70 horsepower, the production of which, under license from the British company Ricardo, would be set up in the city of Andrićo. But mass production of Zuks with the new engines would never really get off the ground. In 1993, the plant would receive a new name, Automobile Factory in Lublin, where, alongside the new Lublin truck, production of the Zuk would continue. Thanks to its low price, the Zuk would still maintain demand in the market. In 1995, the plant was taken over by the company Daewoo and became a structural division of Daewoo Motors Polska. On February 13, 1998, production of the Zuk, which had lasted 40 years, came to an end. During this time, 587,500 vehicles were built. The bronze in our ranking goes to another Polish vehicle, the Nysa minivan. Its production began in 1958 at the FSD delivery vehicle plant in the city of Nysa. The vehicle was designed in close cooperation with the leader of the Polish automotive industry, the FSO passenger car plant. The Nysa 57 had a curved ladder frame, a solid metal frame body covered with sheet steel that was 0.8 millimeters thick. The technical components of the Nysa were based on the assemblies of the Warsaw M20 car, which was a licensed copy of the Soviet JZ M20 Pobeda. From the Warsaw M20 passenger car, the van inherited the engine, transmission, and suspension. At the end of 1957, a minibus was also built, which could accommodate 9 passengers. The first Nysa minibuses that were built did not go into mass production due to a number of shortcomings. They had a heavy weight, over 1.5 tons, and a weak engine from the Warsaw M20 passenger car, which produced only 50 horsepower with a displacement of 2.1 liters. The minivan's maneuverability was also insufficient. The first truly mass-produced Nysa vehicles were the N58 FM models, which began production in 1958. The vans had a payload capacity of 800 kilograms. The vehicle's design no longer included windows, and a partition appeared inside the cabin, separating the cargo area from the driver's compartment. The cargo Nysa received a new reinforced suspension. In total, 313 vans were produced in 1958. In 1959, the Nysa underwent another modernization. Once again, the suspension was improved, and wider wheel rims with reinforced tires appeared. On the outside, the vehicle differed little from its predecessors, but its design became much lighter and more technologically advanced in production. In 1964, an updated model of the Nysa was released, with a 3-digit numerical index in its name, Nysa 501. These vehicles were equipped with new S21 engines, developed at the FSO passenger car plant in Warsaw. These power units were modernized versions of the GAZ M20 Pobeda. The new S21 engines featured an improved combustion chamber and a higher compression ratio. All this made it possible to increase the power from 50 to 70 horsepower, which in turn improved the car's performance. As in previous models, the engine was paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. The new model also saw changes in its design. The van received a new curved windshield, which consisted of 2 parts instead of 4, as in the previous model. In the mid-1960s, the factory in Nysa was modernized. A new paint booth was introduced and automated stamping was set up, which made it possible to speed up and standardize the complex process. Production volume increased from 5,000 vehicles in 1964 to 7,500 in 1967. About 30% of the vans produced were exported. In 1968, the automobile body plant received a new name, the Commercial Vehicle Factory FSD. Along with the new name came a new model, the Nysa 521. The van received larger dimensions and a new design, which would remain largely unchanged for the rest of the vehicle's production period. Serial production of the 521 model began in 1969. The main design changes to the vehicle affected its windshield and front end. The Nysa 521 had a semi-bonnet layout. This design allowed for more space for the driver and front passenger. Among the changes, it's also worth noting the new bumpers, windshield wipers, an additional reverse light, and a windshield washer. The ventilation hatches were made of translucent plastic. The area of the windshield increased by almost a third, and it became panoramic. The size of the side windows also increased. The van and the cargo passenger version received sliding side doors. In August 1972, the 100,000th anniversary vehicle rolled off the FSD assembly line. In 1976, the modernized Nysa 522 model was released. The new vans received a higher roof and a dual circuit braking system with a separate drive for each circuit. In 1978, the factory in Nysa reached its production peak, 18,200 vehicles per year. At the beginning of the 80s, Poland plunged into a deep economic and political crisis. The country was swept by mass strikes, and industrial production declined. In 1984, the factory in Nysa produced only 12,049 vehicles. Due to a lack of funds for modernization, Nysa vans were produced almost without any technical changes, which led to a loss of competitiveness both in the countries of the Eastern Bloc and in Western automotive markets. In the early 90s, after the fall of the Iron Curtain and the collapse of the communist system, market reforms were introduced in Poland. On the open automotive market, the technically outdated Nysa lost its competitiveness. Throughout the entire year of 1993, only 1,800 vehicles were produced. And on February 3, 1994, under the flashes of cameras, the last Nysa rolled off the assembly line. Over 37 years of production, 380,575 vans and minibuses left the factory gates. The silver in our ranking goes to the Soviet RAF van. In 1976, a new model called the RAF-2203 Latvia rolled off the assembly line of the newly built RAF factory in the town of Jelgava, near Riga. A front-engined, cab-over minibus with a unibody design. The minibus was built on the chassis of the GZ-24 Volga. The curb weight of the vehicle was 1,670 kilograms, and the gross weight was about 2,700 kilograms. The design of the RAF-2203 was characterized by straight, sharp lines, a large glass area, and a chisel-shaped front end with a slanted panoramic windshield and a narrow radiator grille. The minibus was equipped with a 4-cylinder ZMZ-24D engine from the Volga, producing 95 horsepower. In addition to the engine from the 24th Volga, the vehicle was also fitted with a 4-speed gearbox. The front suspension was an independent spring type with 2 shock absorbers. The rear suspension was a dependent leaf spring type. The braking system was drum type, dual circuit with hydraulic drive. In 1987, the model was modernized and received the index RAF-22038. The modernized version differs from the previous one by the front end trim, which features a new decorative radiator grille. In addition, disc brakes were installed on the front wheels. The minibus was equipped with a new ZMZ 400 and 2.10 engine with a power output of 98 horsepower. In the first 9 years of production, 100,000 RAF-2203s rolled off the factory assembly line. Subsequently, until the end of the 80s, the factory produced about 15,000 minibuses annually. Based on the 2203, the factory produced numerous modifications, which were used as service vehicles in various state agencies and ministries. The most common among them were RAF-22031 Ambulance. It was equipped with light and sound alarms, specialized stretchers, necessary medical equipment, and seats for medical personnel. It was painted white with red doors and wide red stripes along the sides of the body. RAF-22032 City Taxi. In this modification, the seats were arranged facing inward along the sides of the cabin. The RAF-22033 service vehicle for the police and traffic police was painted yellow with a blue stripe. It was equipped with the necessary communication devices and blue flashing beacons. To serve the Moscow Olympics in 1980, the factory produced 300 specialized vehicles in 7 different modifications. The RAF-2907 was a vehicle designed to accompany the Olympic flame. It was fitted with an enlarged radiator and a powerful electric fan to reduce overheating during long trips at low speeds. To support cycling races, the RAF-2909 pickup was produced, featuring a cargo platform and a double cab for 5 people. RAF-2910/2911 were electric vehicles for judges. RAF-3407 was a tractor unit with 2 trailer wagons. There were also cargo versions, RAF-2916, a small batch, lidless van for transporting mail and industrial goods, RAF-3311, a flatbed 1-ton truck, RAF-33111, a flatbed truck with a double cab. In 1988, the French company La B manufactured 62 armored cash-in-transit vehicles based on the RAF-2203, which were used by the State Bank until 1993. The RAF-2203 had good dynamics, a comfortable interior, a smooth ride, and decent off-road capability. Among the main drawbacks of the vehicle, as with the previous model, were insufficient suspension strength and the effectiveness of the braking system. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, RAF lost its scheduled orders. The supply of components and assemblies from Russian automobile factories was disrupted, as under market conditions they no longer wanted to support a competitor to their own Gazelle vehicles. This situation led to the fact that in 1997, due to bankruptcy, RAF's production activities ceased. Step by step, place by place, we've come closer to the top spot in the ranking of the best minivans of the socialist bloc, which is claimed by yet another Soviet legend, the UAZ Bukanka. The vehicle got its well-known nickname because of its design, which resembled the traditional rectangular bread common in the USSR, also called Kirpich brick. The minivan was developed at the request of the Ministry of Defense of the USSR. The UAZ 450 went into production in 1958 at the Ulyanovsk automobile plant. The vehicle's payload capacity is 750 kilograms. The production vans were equipped with a side-valve engine with a displacement of 2.4 liters and a power output of 65 horsepower. This same engine was also used in the first Volga, Gaz M21 cars. The UAZ 450 gearbox is a 4-speed manual. Not only cargo vans were produced, but also flatbed trucks and ambulance vehicles. The doors on the first UAZ models opened against the direction of travel, just like on the Hunchback Zaporozhets. The side windows were sliding. Later on, the door hinges were attached to the front pillar. This was much safer. But regular window winders only appeared in the car in 1962. Back in 1957 to 58, the first prototypes of the UAZ 450V minibus were built, but it would still be a long time before the factory could set up production of this complex modification. And passenger versions were not a priority either. The national economy and the army mainly needed cargo vans and small trucks. In 1960, a simplified rear-wheel drive version of the van called the UAZ 451 was built specifically for city use. The vehicle received a modified and reinforced frame. The engine of this van was moved slightly backward. This way, the driver felt more comfortable. Along with the frame, the body was also reinforced. A side door was added to the cargo compartment of the van, in addition to the 2 rear doors. It was these vehicles that delighted representatives of regional trade organizations, serving as delivery vans in cities and provincial villages, where only traces remain of the roads. Thanks to its high ground clearance and sturdy leaf spring suspension, the loaf could drive through complete off-road conditions. Even greater off-road capability was demonstrated by the all-wheel drive UAZ vehicles. The real stars in the Army were the UAZ 450A ambulance vehicles. The interior of this vehicle was divided into 2 zones, one for the driver and passenger, and another for 2 patients with a doctor. Inside the vehicle, there was enough space for 4 bedridden patients on stretchers and 3 passengers, or for 9 seated people. When the military received the necessary number of UAZ ambulances, their production did not stop. The Bukanka vans continued to be produced for the civilian market. The UAZ 450A ambulances became the main emergency vehicles at rural feldsher midwife stations and in the emergency departments of district hospitals. Because of their use in the medical field, these vehicles earned the nickname Tableta, the pill. At the same time as the medical van, production of a staff minibus for the Army was established, which was named the UAZ 450B. The vehicle could be equipped with military equipment at the customer's request. The features of this vehicle were classified. The UAZ 450D was the flatbed truck version of the vehicle. This is a small truck that had good off-road capability and a load capacity of 800 kilograms. It was used by organizations and enterprises to transport various goods both in cities and in rural off-road conditions. Also, as an experimental model, a small UAZ 450P semi-truck with a 4-wheel drive configuration was developed in Ulyanovsk in 1963. It operated in tandem with the UAZ 752 semi-trailer. This modification of the UAZ did not go into mass production. The first generation of Bukanka vans was produced until 1965. During this time, more than 55,000 units in various modifications rolled off the assembly line at the Ulyanovsk plant. In 1965, the plant began producing a new generation of vehicles called the UAZ 452. The new Bukankas featured a redesigned radiator grille. It became larger and simpler, and was moved to the lower part of the vehicle's front panel. The design of this Bukanka has remained virtually unchanged for 60 years now. This vehicle became the perfect embodiment of the conservatism of the entire Soviet automotive industry. Aside from minor cosmetic updates, the new generation of the Bukanka also received technical upgrades. A new overhead valve engine with 70 horsepower was installed under the hood of the UAZ 452. The vehicle received a new 4-speed manual transmission and a modernized transfer case. In 1967, production of the 11-seat UAZ 452V minibus was finally established. This UAZ was produced in small quantities and was mainly intended for export. While the exterior design of the Bukanka vans remained virtually unchanged, the vehicle's technical components were nevertheless upgraded. Modernization work on the UAZ 452 lasted a full 10 years, from the mid-1970s to the mid-1980s. Such a lengthy period was due less to the sheer volume of work required and more to a lack of funding. As a result of the modernization, the vehicle received an improved Ulyanovsk engine with 78 horsepower, a dry air filter, a closed cooling system, and crankcase ventilation. The Bukanka also received a dual circuit braking system with a vacuum booster, a hydraulic clutch drive, telescopic shock absorbers, and a new steering shaft. During the period of Gorbachev's perestroika and after the collapse of the USSR, various interesting versions of the classic Bukanka appeared, and the basic minivan has remained on the assembly line at the Ulyanovsk automobile plant for more than 60 years now. The vast majority of the cars on this list, after decades of production and popularity, have become history, unable to survive the collapse of the socialist era. But as for the Bukanka, it seems like it will keep going for many more decades to come.